they wouldn't say, no, don't go out and drink.
The one thing that you can say about him, he always did the business in the park. And a lot of managers will let you away with that.
I think he was playing at Leicester, and he was drunk from the night before. And he ran towards the goal, and the ball hit him on the head and went in the goal. And it was held as a fantastic looping header by Frank McAvennie. But I think he was still pissed from the night before. That's probably one of my favourites. Well, it was out of order though, because I bought my season ticket and he should have done that. But I'm glad he scored.
Suddenly, in January 1986, midway through the season, the rest of Britain got to see what West Ham fans had taken to their hearts. The football authorities and the broadcasters had finally reached agreement, and the first match to be shown was West Ham against Charlton in the Cup. West Ham were on fire and went through to the semi-finals of the Cup, but with their eyes on the real prize, the league, it seemed no one could stop them.
One of the greatest games I'd seen was the Chelsea game at Stamford Bridge. I think we'd done them 4-0. It was fabulous, fabulous football.
Live TV just brings it into the household all the time, doesn't it? All of a sudden, Frank McAvennie, from being well known, was Frank McAvennie megastar.
Frank was scoring on the field and off it. His profile couldn't have been higher, but the rest of football was suffering and seemed in terminal decline. English clubs were banned from Europe after the Heysel Stadium riot. Terracing clashes and falling attendances had ruined football's image. Even nightclubs didn't want footballers.
We weren't all that particularly keen. You know, if footballers came in, it was like, okay, you know, so they stay over there and they keep quiet. Of course, no one didn't have the money. It certainly wasn't glamorous, and they didn't have the entourage that we recognise today. The press was totally disinterested in them on the nightly scene, and then along came Frank. And of course, what he did was to move over from, is that a footballer, to, wow, that's a footballer.
Boom, the football players arrived, and they were so welcome. And let me tell you why. They were the combination of everything we were looking for. They had movie star good looks, they had the appeal of TV stars, they could behave like good old-fashioned rock stars, that is badly, and they had the incredible recuperative powers of sports stars, of football players. They could come out on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, play a game on a Saturday, and be back out on the Monday. This was fantastic. We almost needed to print extra editions to keep up with these guys.
He was a newspaper's dream, wasn't he? He was always out with a pretty blonde on his arm, and he was always out late with a pretty blonde on his arm, so that made it even better.
Footballers today are the biggest celebrities you can have in your club. David Beckham walks in, it's wonderful. It really is. But if he likes the idea of publicity, he owes a great deal to Frank.
You see the culmination of that these days with Hello and OK, but really the seeds for that were laid back probably about 15 years ago. This time from kind of the mid-80s onwards was a time when the media changed and all sorts of people who previously wouldn't have been regarded as celebrities were suddenly elevated to that status. People out of soap operas, you know, very minor pop stars, Page 3 girls, you know, the sort of people Frank loved. And he rubbed shoulders with that whole crowd, kind of a London glitterati.
If you were a Page 3 girl, you had to have a footballer. You know, and the girls would come in and go, hi, any footballers? Excuse me. You know, and it really did get that association. And of course, Stringfellas in the 80s, Page 3 footballers go hand in hand.
It was the old George Best syndrome, you know, very talented on the field and had to have a very, very sort of very exciting social life off it. And I think people like Frank, they carried sort of the tradition of George Best forward.
Cheers, mate.
To this day, West Ham fans see Frank McAvennie as their George Best.
Frank McAvennie was the golden boy. He was in all the papers. He was probably the Page 3, the model girlfriend. You know, he was the man.
He summed up everything that was West Ham in the 80s. He was the quintessential footballer on the field, and he done the business. And off the field, he was never off the front pages.
It was their greatest ever season, and the league championship was a real possibility. West Ham remained in the hunt till the very end.
McAvennie!
They had to beat West Brom, and they did, But Liverpool had to lose, and they didn't. Ironically, on the day that West Ham lost the league, Frank lost the Golden Boot, the award for Europe's top goal scorer. He lost it by a single goal to England's centre-forward, Gary Lineker.
To think that boring, crisp-eating Gary Lineker got ahead of him in the Golden Boot that year. So television was Frank's downfall. One is that he never got seen enough on it, and two, that Lineker, a TV pundit, stuffed him.
Frank was just brilliant. I mean, people talk about Di Canio, and yes, Di Canio is wonderful, but Frank McAvennie always in my mind, West Ham's best ever forward, without a shout.
After one season in London, Frank McAvennie was the fans' hero, and remains so to this day. But a year later, he had gone almost as dramatically as he had arrived. Frank McAvennie was about to hit the headlines in a unique football story.